Christmas is a time when it's hard not to borrow a bit, whether it be on a credit card, a store card or even an overdraft. But a growing number of people are choosing a different route, which enables them to bypass the banks altogether. It's called social or peer-to-peer lending, and it involves individuals who need money borrowing from people who have some to spare. The online marketplace Zopa was the first to start out in 2005, and we can speak to its co-founder, Giles Andrew, who's on the phone from South Africa. Hello, Giles.
Good evening, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Is it nice and warm?
You're rather colder than I am.
Yes, I think we are, but we won't dwell on that. Now, I understand the past year has been particularly good for you. How many people are using your services now?
Well, we've lent over £110 million now to just over 22,000 people. We've been growing at a rate of sort of roughly double each year for the last 3 or 4 years.
And are you benefiting from the fact that a lot of people just don't trust the banks anymore?
Well, I think there's two things going on. So one, there's a fundamental breakdown in trust between banks and consumers. And the other thing is the economics. So bank spreads have widened enormously in the last 2 or 3 years since the credit crunch. So banks are paying their savers less than they ever have before. And yet the rates they're charging their borrowers haven't really come down. If anything, they've gone up.
So how does the average rate on Zopa compared with the average rate a bank will give you?
Well, it's quite difficult to compare exactly sort of apples with apples, but we reckon that a typical borrower who gets a loan at Zopa will be paying about 20-25% less than they would for the same loan from a bank. So our rates start at about 7.5% and sort of go up from there.
And just tell us a little bit more about how people, when they start out, if they haven't used it before, how do they actually approach the whole thing?
Well, as a borrower, you apply for a loan in much the same way as you do at a bank, apart from the fact that it's a completely online process, so it's equivalent really to an online loan from a bank. You join Zopa, we make sure you are who you say you are. We pull what's called a credit file on you, so we buy credit data on you and put you through a scorecard of our own, which assigns a risk level to you, and that allows us to give you a unique quote to you based on your own circumstances.
And how much can people borrow?
People can borrow between £1,000 and £15,000 over 3 or 5 years. So the typical loan purposes are things like borrowing money to buy a car, or maybe get a new kitchen or something like that. And
do people generally need a good credit history?
Absolutely. So because our rates are so low and because we're looking after the interests of our lenders, which is the other side of the equation, if you like, so the people who are funding these loans are real people like you and me who are setting the rates that they want to lend at. Obviously, we have to protect them, so we make sure that we only lend to the most creditworthy people.
But what if
our
somebody
borrowers are extremely creditworthy?
What if somebody doesn't pay back what they borrow? You're not covered by the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, are you?
No, because that's set up to protect depositors, and Zopa doesn't take deposits. But we obviously pursue any debt that isn't paid on behalf of our lenders, because it's in our interest to make sure that lender returns are what we predict them to be, and that therefore we have a duty of care to our lenders to make sure that we collect their debts diligently, and we've had some success in that. And so over the last 5 years, our default rates are only about 0.7%, which we believe is lower than any financial institution over this period.
There are quite a few similar sites out there now, lots of copycat sites. Are you going to try and become properly regulated soon, all of you collectively?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's I think it's great news that people have decided to copy us when we were a bit lonely for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. But in the last 6 months, as you say, 4 or 5 people have appeared. So that sort of proves the concept, if you like. And I think it's important now, given both the fact that there are a number of people doing a similar thing and also the scale that our business has reached, that we do become properly regulated, so that as an industry we can seek to provide our lenders with the protection and the security that they deserve.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Giles Andrews, and he is the co-founder of Zopa, which is spelt, if you want to know, Zopa.